So Kevin, thanks for stopping by and talking to EOF. How are you doing today?
Great, yeah. In such a time as this, there's really just momentary graces that Jesus allows you to notice and kind of slow down and really just kind of reap from. And so the days have been good and kind, even in an unsteady time.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a crazy time. But enough of that. So Kevin, you're the director of worship at
Hmm.
Grace Presbyterian in Peoria, Illinois. So
Yep.
I think a great place to start would be tell us about your 150-year-old church.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's actually obviously I wasn't there when it began,
What?
but it began actually in a rail car, and just as a Sunday school class, and has now grown into a church that, I mean, I think we reach 85 nations a day, with the sermons that that our pastor, Brian Chappell, puts out. We translate our messages. We really have. It's amazing the global reach that our church has, and even the local reach. We're on TV and radio in our local area in kind of central Illinois, and so it really is an awesome story to think of what started in a rail car to where we are
Mm.
now. Um, and but we really are also a special. Um, I feel a special community in that when you have such a legacy church, we are blessed to have the generations together. So we'll have great grandparents, grandparents, parents, kids. I mean, you I haven't been a part of a church that really has been so where you're exposed to all the generations. A lot of times churches can kind of become demographic niches, and they really kind of favor one, or they're just
Right.
culturally in an area that suits to one or or another. And so this is the first church I've belonged to where I really can see all the generations around me, and so I think that's a real special culture that we're in.
That's awesome. Yeah. Um, what I thought we'd do now is listen to a bite-sized sound of Christ Be
Yeah,
All. And that
sure,
way it gives the audience a chance to hear some of your music, and then you can talk about it. Sound good?
sure.
Oh, to be empty and lowly, meek and unnoticed, and unknown, and to God, a vessel holy, filled with Christ, and Christ alone. How great is God, His grandeur endless. How frail I come before His throne. I am lost in love relentless. That Christ be all, and I His own. May Christ be all, and I be nothing. His glory shines in vessels weak. May Christ be all, and I be nothing. This is my hope, not I, but Christ in me. This is my hope, not I, but Christ in me.
So, Kevin, why don't you tell us about the song and some of the inspiration behind that?
Yeah. This was a song, sometimes you can really labor and just you feel like the song is stuck or something. And this was one that, for the most part, was quick. And to my surprise, I was reading the book Humility by Andrew Murray,
Mm.
and just loved it. I mean, it was just a balm for my soul to read, and to really, just as he so beautifully helps you understand, the fullest life is one that follows the model of Christ's humility, right? That, like it says in Philippians 2, that he emptied himself, he became nothing, right? He took the form of a servant. And so that Christ became nothing, so that God, the Father's will, would become everything, right? That God would be exalted. And so we get to follow this model that we would become nothing, that Christ would become everything. And so it's not that we lose our image-bearing uniqueness and qualities, or that me as Kevin King is meaningless, but that Jesus does his good work in us to level the first Adam within us, to make way for the second. His Spirit works in us, and so that we would become nothing, that Christ would become everything. And at the end of the book, he had written a poem that really is it became the first verse of the song. I read the poem, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so good, like this has to be a song. And so the premise really came thanks to Andrew Murray, I guess, or before him, Jesus.
Right.
But it really was, reading that book was so helpful and just so good for me. And even singing it now, it's always a challenge to my flesh, as we can just forget that is a good prayer to pray.
Yeah, absolutely. That's an awesome story too. Now might be a good time to talk about Grace Worship, about their vision and what they're all about.
Yeah, sure. Our vision statement, you think most churches have some sort of vision statement of like, love God, love people. And so we really it took me about like a year and a half, almost 2 years to really think, how do we, as the worship ministry, specifically in our role that God has given us, serve our church's greater vision. And our church's vision is that we would be a church of God's unlimited grace for all peoples and all generations. And so how do we do that as the worship ministry? And so our vision as Grace Worship is that we are a family of worshipers serving to unite the church to treasure Jesus through theologically rich and creatively beautiful art. And so through all that we do, through the songs that we write, through even just the way that we present, through everything, we want to be, humbly used by God to be an agent to unify the church, to treasure Jesus together. And we've been given the medium of music and art and creativity, and so that's why we want to do it through theologically rich and creatively beautiful art. So that's kind of our heartbeat.
You're talking my language. I like it. Yeah. So, and with that being said, we have another sound bite, Calvary's Anthem. Let's listen to that one, and maybe you can tell us a little bit about that as well.
Sure.
O Heavenly Father, by your will, my heart is led to Calvary's hill, to fling my burdens on your love, and see them vanish in His blood.
Okay, why don't you tell us about Calvary's Anthem?
So there's many reasons I love Calvary's Anthem. First is to say it's such a wonderful hodgepodge, and I think that really also it's kind of a tangible expression, I feel, of the culture of the church that we're in. Right, we have so many different generations, but there's value into that Christ gives in all things, right? There's value in looking back, and there's value in moving ahead. And so Calvary's Anthem is the melody is a traditional Appalachian tune. So we didn't the verse melody, we didn't write that. So I love that we're just kind of taking it to a traditional Appalachian melody. Our pastor, Dr. Brian Chappell, he wrote the verse lyrics. So there's some new hymnody there. And as I read his lyrics, I just thought, what is the heart of this text? And he'd already titled it Calvary's Anthem, so I know it's pretty obvious that the heart of it is the cross. But really, as a songwriter, you think, how can I best support the text that's already been given and written? And so I thought a creative way to, again, be blending genres and generations would be to take the chorus of Nothing But the Blood, which would be old hymnody, right? So you have some new hymnody, now adding some old hymnody with a new melody. And then I wrote a new bridge that I felt just helped punctuate the theme that we were trying to get across, of just that that the cross really is our salvation, but also our transportation. So by the end, in the beginning of the song, you're asking, "Oh Lord, that I would even look to my salvation," and by the end, you're transported through heaven's gate. In the midst, you had to come through valleys of darkness and shame, and but so it really is. It's a beautiful journey the song takes you on. But what I love then production wise, why it's a hodge, is because you have an Appalachian melody, new hymnody, old hymnody, new modern bridge, and then you have it being band driven and orchestra driven, and not many worship songs kind of offer that kind of wider spectrum of instrumentation, and I'm just thankful that we got to do that. I mean, I think that the orchestral surroundings of it really enhance the piece, and that even on the final chorus, I mean, if you didn't have the orchestra for the rendition that we did, you really would have lost something. It was just brilliant. And so I think it just shows that even what people might think of or categorize as traditional instrumentation really can be used in a modern setting that can serve all generations. And so that's why the song is dear to me, because it's a beautiful hodgepodge that also shows just unity in its being.
Right. You guys are awesome. Your music's awesome. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
That being said, I guess we're coming to the end. Do you have any final words you'd like to leave the OF listener?
I guess just that Christ is our hope, and really when we think of even just now and how that he is the shepherd of our church, and he is sometimes as a worship leader the task can seem insurmountable when you think we're going to unify the church that can have many different preferences or traditions or hopes and or whatever they would like. But the fact that that it is Jesus's heart that his church would be one, that we would be united, that we would be one functioning and healthy body. I mean, his instruction, his desire, and his heart is greater than our sin, and so I think it is just a worthy honor to be able to write content that would help support that endeavor of uniting the church, all to treasure Jesus. And so if there are other songwriters out there who may feel that they have to fit in a certain genre, or they have to tailor to a certain leaning, I think that the church is actually ready for something refreshing and healthy.
Wonderful. Well, Kevin, thank you so much for sharing with us.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Sure.